What's going on, Bucs fans? It is draft week. We have made it finally in less than 3 days because you don't count today, whatever. At around this time, NFL Network, ESPN will be live with their draft coverage. 8 o'clock rolls around, the first pick off the board, and then shortly after that, the draft gets underway. The Bucs will be on the clock at pick 19. So much speculation about what they will do. New names are popping up left and right. They're bringing in guys for official 30 visits. What does that all mean? Is it the smokescreen season? Are they really interested in these players? We'll get into that. We'll get into some of these guys, the new players that they're that have started circulating, and why some of these other guys might not be as hot right now for the Bucs. Rumors that they could be trying to trade back. Rumors that maybe Rachaad White could be expendable. I don't know. We talked to some players today. Some interesting tidbits there from Kalijah Kancey and Yaya Diaby. We'll get into all that. And we have a special guest. Like I said, we're going every day this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we'll be on with a live reaction after the pick and after we talk to whoever that prospect is. I'll be on live with a little pop-up show. And then, who knows, maybe we'll go Friday too. Why not, right? And Saturday, might as well, right? Go all week long, nonstop coverage here of the NFL draft and specifically the Buccaneers here on Pirate Parlay Podcast. So, with that being said, let's get the intro out of the way. Let's get back to the other side because we have a lot to go over. And, of course, another live mock influenced by you guys in the comments. Drop your questions for our draft expert coming in as well if you have anything. We'll be right back on the other side.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Welcome back to the other side here on the Pirate Parlay Podcast. Again, JC Allen, your host, as always, here on the Sick Podcast Network. Check it out. And if you're interested in other teams around the league, we've got several other podcasts representing those teams, and you can get some insight on maybe where they're headed in the draft, which might maybe affect the Bucs draft plans. So check them out as well. Everyone in here, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Appreciate you guys every time for doing that. If you're listening on the podcast format, appreciate you guys. Come check us out live. We'll be live tomorrow at noon with Ryan Fowler of the Draft Network. We'll be live Wednesday at a normal time slot at 7 p.m. with Josh Capo of Pewter Report. But today we are live here, Monday 7 for a special edition with none other than former Sick Podcast draft guru and also doing a lot of cool things. Some CFL involvement. He's, some independent scouting for teams in the NFL, doing a lot of cool things. He's none other than John Vogel. Help me welcome him into the chat. John, thanks for popping in. Appreciate you, man.
And thank you for having me, JC. I appreciate you, man.
So what do you got going on right now? Because you were with us, and then you moved on to greener pastures. What's and we know you are always grinding the tape. What's going on with you now?
Well, we're coming back, man. We're doing a little bit of a relaunch with the Sick Podcast this next week. And
keep it a secret on me.
Yeah. Well, we just released, a little. I just basically announced it today. We're gonna be joined by another co-host, a new co-host who is really good at what she does. Emily Van Buskick. She's going to be coming on with us. She's done, I did stuff with her indirectly when we were together at the Brawl Network back in 2021. She has covered the NFL. She's been doing a lot of golf lately, but she's covered the NFL. She covered the draft, college football. Very knowledgeable woman. Really excited to be doing the podcast with her. So we're going to get it back going. It's been a little rough on my side, just with all the different projects and everything going on. But we were able to clear up some time and get this thing rolling back. So we're happy to be back. I love this network. Obviously, you've been working with them for probably longer than I have. And
almost 2 years now.
Exactly. They're a great group of people. Any opportunity that I can have to work with them, I will take 100%. And it's been tragic. I hadn't been able to do that recently.
Yeah, you're struggling with so many things too, but it's nice to have you back on the network. I just saw that, and I just shared it out there, so make sure you guys go follow him because he's going to be dropping some great insight on this NFL draft. here today with me before we jump into a mock draft. But let's kind of jump into it. Actually, it's a little housekeeping things. I'll get your thought process on this because I know you scouted him heavily 2 years ago. Kalijah Cansey had some press time today. Pre-draft, and said the start of the offseason program started back up. So all the guys are in there, and he spoke too. He said that what would happen? The question was, what would happen if he was able to play all 17 games? He goes, I think he'd be looking at the sack leader if I suit up for all 17 games.
Yeah.
Is that whether they're to lead the team or lead the league? He said in the league. Is that far-fetched from what you've seen from Kalijah Cansey at the pro level? With all the time he's missed and the injuries he dealt with in the first half of the season, and still see the numbers and even some of the near misses he's had, go back to that Washington game. Do you think that's far-fetched for interior defensive linemen such like Kalijah Cansey to lead the league in sacks? And what are your thoughts on him? What were your thoughts on him pre-draft compared to what you've seen now 2 years in the league?
Well, I wish I could tell you a lie and say that, oh yeah, I wasn't that high on him and but because I don't like to brag, but Kalijah Cansey was one of my favorite players in that draft cycle. I saw a lot of Aaron Donald to his game. They're very similarly built. They win a lot of the same ways. And obviously Donald is in a league by himself right now in terms of modern day interior defensive linemen. I don't want to say he's the next Aaron Donald, but they play a very similar game. So I was a huge fan of him coming out. I loved him at Pitt. I think before the Senior Bowl, when he went down there and played, and showed off what he could kind of do coming out of that cycle, he was one of my guys I had highlighted and I talked a lot about extensively because, yeah, he was a little bit of an undersized guy. He's not quite 6'1", he's 280, and those guys don't always necessarily translate well because of the smaller stature. You have to have longer arms, you have to have quickness, really good initial first step. He had all that, and he had different ways to win. I don't think it's necessarily far-fetched to say that he would be among the leaders in sacks if he had been able to stay healthy at any point, last year. But I think I don't necessarily know. It'd be very difficult, obviously, to pull that off from where he lines up. But yeah, no, I think he would be among the leaders for sure. He's a double-digit sack guy.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And with the Bucs really wanting to get back to just winning with 4, bringing in Hassan Reddick, I expect them to draft an edge rusher. I expect them to probably draft a defensive tackle, considering this draft. I wouldn't be shocked if they went DT round 1. I wouldn't be shocked if they went DT round 2 or 3. I really think they'll come out with them. I mean, you just look at their prospects and you can see a path 15 to 20 of them being off the board by the end of the 3rd round easily. And with about 5 to 10 more guys who can be rotational guys in the very least. But if you need a 2-gap plug nose tackle who can take on double teams and clog up that middle, like they've got those. It's really what are you looking for? What's your preference? You're going to get playmakers well into the 5th round in this draft. Again, with almost 20 of them coming off the top of the board. So it fits with what they want. And if they're able to sustain that, that's going to open up more opportunities. If Yahya and Hassan take up that next level, we know what's Vita Vea is doing. That'll open up a lot more ability to get some one-on-ones and stuff like that, especially shaded over in the B gap where he can just, take a guard one-on-one and try to manhandle him and get by him, and you win with speed and agility. And I don't know the league, but the Bucs for sure. He's done it. He did it this past year, and I definitely think he can be up there. Aaron Donald light is what they were calling him. And so far throughout, when he's healthy throughout the first 2 seasons, you certainly see flashes of not just brilliance, but dominance. And I think he's in year 3, he's ready to take a nice jump. Same thing with Yahya Diaby. I think those 2 guys are going to be monstrous, and just what an excellent draft class for the Bucs that year. You get Cody Moak, who's one of the best guards in the league right now at right guard. Over the last half of the season, you look at his numbers. He literally was the best guard in the NFC, and he was the 4th best guard in the league, grading out per PFF, and just the eye test. I mean, he was a monster. Then you get Yaya Diaby out of that draft, Savasia Danis, Payne Durham, both guys who Savasia could be the starter. Payne stepped up big when Kadant went out. The Bucs are great at drafting, especially over the last couple of years, and they've got an opportunity on Thursday to make some more impact moves and impact players. Let's talk about those guys. We've talked about Jihad Campbell. We've talked about Donovan Ezeraku. We've talked about Malachi Starks, three of the guys who are linked mostly to the Bucs. My gut, and I don't like it. I like him. Okay, bring me back to 2022. I had a gut feeling the Bucs were taking Logan Hall. I just had this gut feeling. And I've got that same gut feeling about Maxwell Hairston. I don't love him. I liked Logan Hall. I liked what he could be. He finally started showing something this year. I don't love Maxwell Hairston, especially at pick 19. Can you help me fall in love with him?
Yeah. I don't know if I can help you fall in love with him. I see the what people like about him, and one of the things that I do, when I'm evaluating a guy is I want to figure out. I kind of want to put a label on him to a certain extent as to what the type of player that he is. How are you going to use them? And so every position group kind of has these prototypes, you could call them, right? You talk about quarterbacks, and you've got game managers, you've got gunslingers, you've got a bunch of different adjectives and things that you can use to describe what type of player they are. Now, as you get into like the corner position, now you're talking more, is he a man cover? Is he a physical zone guy? And so Hairston kind of falls in this range where he can be a match cover corner. What I mean by that is match coverage is something that the NFL is running a lot of here in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hybrid mix between zone and man. You're reacting to routes that are being run in front of you. So, for example, most match coverages work with your outside boundary corner does not cover anything that comes inside. From the outbreaking receiver, he stays on the outside, passes that off to the safety who comes down to cover it. That's your typical match coverage. Now, there's all kinds of variations that come with that, but it requires you to have, first off, discipline, understanding the system, and then it also requires you to be capable in both man and zone coverage. So he kind of fits that bill. Now, the cover aspect of this comes in because he's not really a guy that wants to be super physical with you. He's a guy that wants to kind of settle into a trail, use his speed, use his athletic ability, and then break on the football if you are to target him in that way. And so you go back to the Texas game this past year. He was picked on early and often by Texas because they were like, he's not going to be physical with our guys. We're going to just go straight at him and try to get him out of his rhythm so then we can open up the rest of our offense. And it worked. Texas ran over him. So that part kind of concerns me a little bit. Now, when you start talking about comparisons, all right, who he kind of compares to recent memory, Nate Wiggins last year, very similar player, very similar skill set. I had a lot of the same concerns with Hairston that I did with Wiggins coming out, which is he's not very physical. He doesn't want to be involved very much in the run game. He's got great speed, but that's his main trait. Wiggins worked out pretty well for the Ravens this year. Now, if you're getting Nate Wiggins with Hairston, I think any team is willing to take him in the first round. But if you want a physical run defense, you want him to play the run from the boundary, you want him to get up in there and be physical, that's not what you're getting. You're going to get a guy that's going to be more coverage based. He's going to use his athletic ability to try to impact the play and stay in position to make a break on the football.
Now, is this do you see him because of his size? He's 5'11". The Bucs typically like their corners to be over 6 feet. They typically like their corners to be physical and run support. At least want to tackle. I know they want to get home with 4, and we just talked about that a lot more, which could mean some more zone things. To me, I feel like Harrison's a little bit better in man than zone. What are your thoughts on his? What are your thoughts on his best scheme fit? I guess, and I know he played like a little bit of both. At Kentucky, played a good mix of it. But what is your thoughts? Where do you think he fits better? In like a man or more of a man defense, more of a zone coverage defense? What do you think?
I honestly thought he was a little bit better in zone. And that's just because trail technique is when you basically let the receiver run the route and you react to whatever he's doing. It requires incredible reactive athletic ability. I'm not necessarily sold on the fact that he's got great reactive athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
But he plays like he does. So let's. I want to try to hammer home this point a little bit and to kind of explain what I'm talking about when I say reactive athleticism. Everybody's seen the video, I think, up at this point from a couple of years ago. Tyreek Hill is at his high school camp working with kids, and a high school kid goes out there and toasts him, and while Tyreek's playing coverage.
Yep.
Everybody's immediately like, "What on earth? What is this about?" Blah blah. It's the fact that Tyreek is a pure athlete. He is very good when he knows where he's going. He's not reactive. That's why he doesn't play well in coverage. That's why the high school kid went out there and broke his ankles. He doesn't have that reactive athletic ability. That's the
Right.
most important thing, I think, when you're evaluating a corner. How reactive are they? If you're not sold on their reactive athletic ability, you have to basically be sold on their instincts and essentially hope they
Coverage
can play
speed.
zone. Right. Yeah. Great speed. Exactly. So that you're looking at a guy that's a little bit more of a zone guy. He does a very good job balancing, discipline with play recognition, which is where I think the match kind of coverage comes into play. And he's capable in man. He's just not that. I don't think that's necessarily his calling card. So I don't necessarily like the fit for Tampa unless they're going to do something completely different with the defense this year. If they're going to roll into quarters coverage and run match out of it, or even three high and run match out of it, okay, I can see the fit. But he's going to be used for a different role than any corner that Tampa's had over the last couple of years, and it's
Right.
not going to be an enforcer. You're not going to be the force guy. You're going to want to try to keep this guy out of those run situations as much as you can. Maybe bring your rover down and kind of play that side and put him on the strong side of the formation when you look at like the nickel, where the nickel's
Right.
lined up. That's what he's going to have to do.
Do you think he can bump inside at all?
Again, you kind of have to be willing to play the run to bump inside. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and a lot of those inside guys now, unless they're
He's gotten
big,
better
unless they're
at
a
it,
pure
but
tight end. Yeah, a lot of those inside guys are quick, and you have to be super reactive there. So like you look at a Jedi Barron out of Texas, that guy is got crazy reactive athletic ability. That's why there's even rumor of him going sixth overall to the Raiders, because he's got that intensity, he's got that reactive athletic ability, and he's very willing to come up and play against a run.
right.
I don't necessarily see that from Hairston. I don't see a guy that now the coaches did say that, to your point. The coaches did say, yeah, he got better since he came to Kentucky. I still didn't see it a whole lot. Not enough to sit there and say, yeah, this is a guy that wants to be put my nose in the dirt and really make a play.
Right. Right. Yeah, I get that. Um, again, I don't love. I know we got a lot of people in here saying I love Hairston, excellent in zone, pick six artist. He's already gained weight at 194, ran a 4.24. Again, for me, it's are they changing the defensive philosophy? And we kind of saw that last year a little bit, right? Bull's pressure rate, blitzing rate was way down than what it normally is. So maybe this is just an evolution of the defense. I don't know. I feel like I've done enough digging to try to sway me and convince me to really kind of love this guy.
I'll tell you who'd be the
maybe
better
it's
fit if you're going to go corner. I'll tell you who it is. It's Siobhan
sure,
Ravel out
Trevon
of East
Ravel, right?
Carolina.
But
If he's still on the board, JC,
he's
that's a
going to be
guy.
on the board at 19. We're talking second round here now for him at 53.
I don't know, JC. That's what I'm saying.
I think he'll be on the board there. I think he's a trade back guy.
I think so. I think so too. But I don't think he necessarily gets outside the top 25. There's a lot of love for him inside the league. I'm telling you. And his medicals came back clear as well. That's the factor. He just missed, I think, 10 games last year with an ACL injury.
Yep.
He's ready to go for rookie minicamp. Okay, so with Ravel, you've also got to kind of factor in, they've met with him a few times as well. You put on that Michigan tape from last year, and he's up there playing against the run. He's very savvy in zone coverage. He's capable, better than capable, I think. And man, I like him better than I like Maxwell, because he's a physical guy and he's bigger too. I think that's the other factor here. He's a lot bigger than Hairston is. He's at 6'1", almost 6'2", 6'1", 7/8 is what he came in at the combine. He's 194. This guy, he's been on a ton of 30 visits. Typically, when you see those borderline guys that are getting a ton of 30 visits, that usually means somebody's going to be coerced into picking him earlier.
Yeah, Amos, another one of those guys.
Exactly. Amos isn't exactly going to be in that camp. So I don't necessarily think Ravel gets outside the top 25, especially if, all right, you got Travis Hunter coming off the board probably at 2. So there's your first corner, and he's got the distinction because he can play both ways. Your Jedi Barron, if he comes off the board in the top 10, or another corner comes off the board in the top 10, now you got a couple other teams picking in the top 15. They're in that 10 to 15 range. That could definitely go corner.
I get what you're saying, because Hunter, Johnson, Barron should all be off the board by 19 rolls around.
Yeah.
Is it an Emmanuel Forbes situation though? That's the kind of thing. Like, does someone just fall in love with a prospect and take them early for the sake of taking them early because they don't pick again in the second round? You know, and that's the thing that's so interesting about this draft, John, is that there's like 10, 12, maybe 15 guys tops that are like blue chip first round. These guys are going to be either Pro Bowlers or All Pros, maybe even a Hall of Famer or two in there. And the rest of it, you're going to get starters. You're going to get serviceable starters, guys who might not get the love, you know, Pro Bowlers, whatever. But Levante David, perfect. I mean, he was second round, but a guy who's only made like 1 or 2 Pro Bowls, who still plays at an elite level, a very high level. You'll get a lot of these guys, I think, through this draft. And I think that's why it's so crazy. Once you get to like 12, 15, anything can happen. It's like no holds barred, I feel like. You can get guys like I've seen PFF bumped Omar Norman Lott to like a 3rd round grade to like a end of the 1st round grade. There's Alexander, another guy who is extremely, I can't even think of the word I want to say for right now, but like everyone's got a different view on him. Everyone's got a different view, you know, and some have him at back of the 1st round. Some people have him in the 3rd round. Like, there's so many different pick your poison, choose your flavor. What do you like? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Sean Ravel could, you know, I don't think
it's the fact that you nailed it. There's maybe 12 guys that you can put into that top tier and say, yeah, these are first round guys. Everybody else, the next tier, they're all kind of clumped together, and it's really anywhere from 15 to 60. So that's 70. Where you get this 70 even. Yeah. This tier, the second tier.
Noel in the 7th in the early 3rd round. I mean, how much different is he than the guy who's going to go in the 2nd round? You know, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly what it is, because we don't normally see a tier right under that. Okay, these are the top guys in the class, this loaded with talent. That's what's different about this class compared to really any that I've ever done. It's gonna be wild to see, because guys like Ravel, guys like Amos, guys like Zabel out of North Dakota State, Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. These guys are all in that group, and all it takes is one team to sit there and go, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take a chance with him with our back end of the 1st round pick, and now you're a 1st round pick. It's a crazy class for that. After pick 8. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm just guessing.
Right. And even then, like Ashton Jenkins, the Jags is gaining steam, you know, after everyone thought it was just going to be Mason Graham forever. And then, you know, Tyler Warren, like there's so much intrigue. There's so much intrigue at 3 still, man. Like you think it's going to be Abdul Carter, but like there's still a lot.
That could be a trade. That could be a trade. Right? That's a hot trade spot right there.
Right.
You know, because the Giants, are they going to take Shador at 3? No. Are they gonna go ahead and roll the dice? It's not really rolling the dice with Carter, you don't think, but they want another edge rusher, maybe. Or you could move back if you want that edge rusher. There's Shamar Stewart.
Right. A lot of people
move back a few picks. He's there.
a lot of people are like, oh, they have Kayvon Thibodeau. I'm like, Kayvon Thibodeau, like he's improved, but like they got to make a decision if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option this year. Like, I don't know if it's like we're not going to take Carter because we got Burns and Thibodeau. I don't think that's very sound.
No, no. Yeah.
So who knows? Let's touch on those guys real quick because we're getting some people. He said I thought the Bucs loved Ezeraku. I think Starks is the pick. I was talking to this about Pless. We're in a group chat. I feel like Starks is their guy, but my gut is telling me maybe it's Hairston. I was going Jihad, and I've changed my first round pick 5 times in my final mock. I was going Jihad up until I heard his medicals. You know, the shoulder, the knee, like those things are questionable. And I don't know if the Bucs would have him on their board at 19. Not to say they wouldn't maybe trade up in the second or take him in the second if he was there, if he lasted that long, because I think he's one of those 10 to 12 guys, if healthy. And the fact that teams are getting scared off from the shoulder, we had an idea he'd be out past training camp likely in his recovery, you know, or at least through most of training camp. But the knee is a different thing. And again, we don't have access to severe. I like Ezeraku a lot. My question is, do the Bucs like Ezeraku a lot? And I think they really like him as a player, but is he like at 19, Ezeraku's there, we're taking him. Like, that's it. Like, is he part of that group of players they like? I think so. But there's also big things about his game where I think there's holes and weaknesses. Like, the Bucs have never been a DPR type of team. I don't think they're going to start. And I think he offers more than DPR, but he's got a lot of work to do in the run game when he's not going against people in the ACC, when these people go in the NFL. Boston College, the teams they play are a lot different than the NFL and what he's going to be facing. So can he disengage from some of these long arm tackles who can match his length and wall him off? He already struggles when, you know, blockers and pullers are out in space and fit in the run gap like that. So I like him. I don't know how much they like him. I know Jason wants to trade down.
Yes.
And that opens up a bigger world of possibilities.
Well, here's the thing, too, about trading down in this draft is the consistent thing I've seen and heard has been there's a lot of teams willing to trade down. But then you start looking at the teams that would trade up, and that's where your pick can start getting a little slim, you know? So there's not a lot of movement looking to come up in the draft, especially when you kind of get into where the Bucs are picking. That's where things are a little bit dicier.
They need a run to start right before their pick. That's what they need.
And you could potentially have it. It really depends. So it goes back to the quarterbacks. That's really where it goes back to.
Right.
Does a quarterback come off at 3? If the answer to that question is no, okay, well, what do the Saints do at 9? Who are they taking? And I think the foregone conclusion is if they go quarterback, it's Shador. And I'm not necessarily sold on that just because they've done a lot of work on Jackson Dart. Now, do they take Dart at 9? Who knows? I mean, this is first pick, new, coaching staff coming in. You've given him a 6-year deal. Derek Carr with the shoulder injury, that was huge news to come out over the weekend, this past weekend. Just like, yeah, let us all know that you might not have a quarterback next year. That changes some things. So that right there by itself is crazy. That's where maybe the pressure ramps up. I don't think the Saints go Shador. So if they take a quarterback at 9, well, then your next spot that a quarterback's going to come off the board is 20 or 21 to the Steelers.
Right.
So those picks before the Steelers, particularly number 20 to Denver, I don't think would be opposed to trading down, especially if the board doesn't fall very well for them. I don't think it will. Somebody that's going to jump Pittsburgh, and they're going to take Shador or whoever they think Pittsburgh's about to take. And Pittsburgh's going to be left in a spot where they're like, well, maybe I need to trade down. So, again, you're in this crazy world where it's like all these teams want to move down because that's where the talent is. And, I don't want to pay, 21st overall money for a guy that I might be able to get at, 35 or 40. And that's exactly the key right there is that's maybe. And so it creates this sort of like, okay, do we just take the guy that we absolutely love or do we just move on and call it a day? if we
And I
have
think,
the opportunity to.
right. And I think with these quarterbacks, the smart thing to do is move on and call it a day. I just don't see any of these guys. I don't even see Cam Ward a true difference maker. Andy Dalton type, maybe, but like, I don't know. I don't think he's, and
I
not
think,
that's not to compare his play, but just like,
yeah, with
starter
Ward, you
for
might.
about 8 to 10 years, back up for the rest of his career.
I think with Ward, you might get Kyler Murray, and not because of the athletic ability, but because of what he does as an improviser.
Right.
And Kyler, when he's healthy, helps that team, but he's not healthy a lot, and Kyler's got all his other issues, that they constantly have to deal with, especially about mid-season. Ironically, when the Call of Duty game typically comes out. But
that's funny. I love that. Okay, so I want to ask you about a couple late round guys because as you guys know, my rankings are coming out now, where I'm essentially breaking down, 7 different prospects in each round that are projected to go. Again, projections. Some of it are my own. Some of it I'm looking at big boards. Some of them I'm looking at other things. They're my projections. Where they could potentially fall. They could go around earlier, around later, get undrafted. I don't know. I don't care. These are pretty much close to consensus, or my opinion on if they could fall a little bit. So a guy who's getting a lot of steam right now, Justin Wally.
yeah,
The Bucs have shown interest in him. He projects to be more of a slot guy from Minnesota. 5'10", 190, ran a 4.40. Is a senior, not one of these super seniors, straight up senior. Talk to me about him. Why could he be a good fit for the Bucs? And just talk to me about the player.
well, we were talking about slot guys earlier. He's not a very big guy. He's bigger for a slot corner that you typically see, and there's 2 distinctions in that nickel slot, right? Which is you got more of a safety type. I like to call him a rover or a robber, and
Right.
you've got a slot corner. That's an undersized corner that's insanely quick. He's got good explosion. I don't necessarily think he's really quick per se, but that's why he's in that later round area. But he's very, very solid change of direction ability. He doesn't have any issue flipping his hips and flowing, and he's a capable tackler. He takes good pursuit angles to the football, effective closer in space. Those are the keys right there. You're like, okay, there's something to work with here. He's not going to start right away. He's going to be one of these guys that you're going to hope will become an impact player maybe year 3. But he's capable in zone coverage. He's a sticky man coverage guy. Good physicality through the route, especially when you put him in press. There's some good stuff to work with there. And yeah, the interest is starting to come up because I've got him tracked. I'm tracking 230 visits that he's taken up to this point, one with Philadelphia, one with Pittsburgh. And both of those late here in the cycle. So there's some stuff to go with. There's some stuff to work with. Obviously, Combine Invite helps out a lot too, where he ran the 4.4 flat, that's a good speed for him. The 10-yard split was it was good, not great, but it was there. 1.52, which is right in that just above average range. But he could definitely be a guy year 3. You'd be looking at him potentially being an impact dude.
Another guy, we'll stick with corners here, Mac McWilliams out of LSU. Another guy who looks, not at LSU, UCF, sorry, local kid.
Yeah, UCF, yep.
Another guy who looks to be more of that slot type role at the next level. Talk to me about him. He's got length that he could play outside, but I think with his size and his ability to kind of stop his feet and restart them and cover kind of the bigger, with the length, the bigger slot, the power slots as they're called nowadays. I think he fits really good there. Where do you see his fit? Is it outside? Is it inside? A little bit of a tweener. What do you got on Mac McWilliams?
No, I think he's an inside guy. He's a slot guy. I saw him in person a couple years ago. He was still at UAB. He transferred to UCF this past year. Totally different player. I mean, night and day difference. At UAB, he was kind of a free agent, tryout guy that we were like, maybe he comes into camp, maybe he makes it, maybe not. Absolutely different player as soon as he got to UCF. His coach had a lot to do with that down there. I forget his name. I've seen him around. He's done really good work with DBs, and Mac is one of his products. Um, yes, there's good stuff to work with. Tested above average of what he was especially where he's expected to. They thought he was going to run right in the 4.5 flat range. He ran a 4.41 at the combine.
Mhm.
So very similar to Wally in the sense of how they're built. You mentioned the length. He is a little bit longer than Wally, but similar play style. Maybe not as willing to be a tackler, and that's why Wally's probably getting a little bit more attention than Mac is. But there's some good stuff to work with there. He's another one of these guys that you're not going to start right away. That you're going to look at year 3 for him to make his big impact.
All right, let's run through another slot corner I have here. And guys, these will be out later this week. So stay tuned for that. Jalen Smith, I have him around like a 6th, 7th round grade out of USC. What are your thoughts on Jalen Smith? More of a slot guy at the next level. And I think the Bucs could come out of this draft with both a slot guy and a guy who can play outside. They could even get a safety, one of those Rover Robert type deals that can be a versatile piece. You know, probably someone who plays downhill a little bit more because you got Antoine, you got Tyke Smith, but one of those guys that they can just rotate the 3 of them out at any position at any time. But we'll save that. But for Jalen Smith is a guy I think they could look at later on in the draft if they're looking for a slot developmental guy.
Yeah, I'm not trying. I don't want to. I don't want to tell you that your work is invaluable or anything like that, so don't take it that way. I think Jalen's going to probably go a little bit sooner than 6th, 7th. He might be closer to borderline 3rd round, 4th, 5th.
Really?
He's had a lot of interest.
It's picking up.
There's certain guys that you look at their skill. First off, you got to perform and test a little bit better than expected. They thought he was going to test well below average for a corner and speed. And he did. He tested right above average, 4.45. Your average corner runs a 4.49. So say 4.5 flat is average. He was just above average. So they were that quality concern. He's a decent tackler and he's fairly capable in space. That helps you. And he is a smooth athlete. When you watch him run, you watch him go through in coverage and flipping his hips. He had a really good combine workout as well, where you got to see that in action. But yeah, he's taken several 30 visits now. And obviously sometimes that's not a pure indicator, obviously, but it's a good indicator when you see 6, 7, 8, 10, 30 visits that these guys are going to go a little bit sooner than you have them slotted. And right now he's done Arizona, he's done Philadelphia, Tennessee, Washington. I think he came in for Tennessee's local day as well. There's a couple others that are in there that I hadn't been able to verify yet. So there's interest. He might go a little bit sooner than that. I don't think he's necessarily better than the last couple of guys that we just mentioned. And it's because not just because of the testing. His testing he's a little bit slower than those guys. He's not as long. They're all in that same type of mold. But I think out of the 3, he's probably a little behind as a tackler and not as effective in space as those other 2.
Do you keep a track record of every team's 30 visits?
I do. Yeah, that's I put it in the profile. I've got the team trackers and all that stuff.
Hey,
Yeah,
you want to? So do you potentially? Would you report them if you hear them, or are you keeping that kind of to yourself, or are you going off based on other people reporting off of? The question I'm asking getting you into is because I have all of them that they've had. I'm just wondering if there's someone maybe I don't have that you might have.
Probably not.
Okay. All right.
I go with the reported. I had, sometimes the agents reach out directly and they let you know that they came in for a visit or whatever. Sometimes the player directly and they tell you. That also happens. So no, I think you're probably spot on because I'm looking at 32 teams. I'm not looking at one. So there are some that I miss.
If I can get a scoop, I'm going to get a scoop. I'm always working for that. We have some love here. The last guy I'll talk about here, and you want to talk about someone who's jumped up. They're talking about 5th rounder, maybe a 4th rounder about 2-3 weeks ago. Now he's getting some 2nd round love. That's Jacob Parrish out of Kansas
Yeah.
State, who supply and demand's asking about. He is my number 2 cornerback for slots behind Jahdae Barron in the first round. I didn't expect him. The Bucs brought him in for a 30 visit, met with him at the combine. I didn't expect to see him have a jump like that. But again, it's as we're getting more information. He's not shooting up the boards. We're catching up to the team's boards. I always have to say that. So as we catch up to their boards, it's crazy to see the jump he's made in the last month and a half.
Yeah, I think first off, he's not as, like tall as the other guys or as long as the other guys we just talked about, but he's a little bit sturdier. And he's also a true junior. That's gonna be a trump card if you've got a bunch of guys kind of grouped together. Oh, he's only played 3 years. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. A good wrap-up tackler. I'm assuming you're probably tracking his 30 visit to Tampa. Good deal. He's been there. He's been with New England. So he is a physical guy, and that's the thing that kind of pops on him on tape. He had a pretty good week at the Senior Bowl as well, covering Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. There were a couple of reps. He was in a really good position, and Noel I think is considered one of the better slot options in this draft.
That's a Bucs fit.
He definitely could go as high as second round, absolutely, and it's just because he's younger, so there's more potential. If he's going to be a 10-year guy in the league, starting out as a backup, develop into your starting slot guy, you're going to get a couple more years out of him. That's what's going to push him over some dudes on the board.
All right, makes a lot of sense. Let's jump back deeper into the draft for some of these cornerbacks here. We'll hit safeties and then we'll round this out with the mock draft. And I'll hit some of these other positions here as the week continues. But Tommy Hill, outside guy out of Nebraska. Bucs have met with him formally at the combine. What do you see out of Tommy Hill that you think he can? I have him. Let's see. I have him as my best bet in, I believe, the fifth round. Is that about where you have him projected to go? What do you like about Tommy Hill?
Yeah, I think that's about where he's going to go. Not a fan of Tommy Hill. In a potential zone, scheme, he could do it. Not when you're asking to go one-on-one with somebody. Absolute liability, my opinion. Don't see him react well out of man coverage at all. Struggles to maintain his positioning, especially against faster guys. I don't remember seeing a good rep from him at the Senior Bowl either. And granted, I haven't gone through. I don't think I've watched every corner rep. But I remember down there, every time I saw that Nebraska helmet, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And sure enough, it was. He's going to get that love because he's bigger. He probably needs to move to like a safety position. But even then, you're in this position where, okay, well, if he ends up in a cover in a man cover situation, that you don't want him in, if you're going to go zero and blitz the quarterback, you don't want him on the field. He's a little bit bigger for a corner. He came into combine at 6'1.5" and 212 pounds. That's big for a corner. And I think that might be part of it. So he's going to have to be in a really heavy zone scheme, and you're going to have to really work on his eyes a little bit, making sure he maintains his discipline. I don't think he's a great athlete. I think that's why he chose not to test at the combine.
Another guy I got here, Zy Alexander out of LSU. I think he's more typical, kind of like the Bucs, what they like as well. What are your thoughts on Zy?
Yeah, I liked him a lot last year. I liked him better last year than I liked him this year. He came into LSU from Southeastern Louisiana. I mean, he was an all high school athlete, played quarterback, played wide receiver, played safety. He kind of has that safety mentality to his game. Lost a little bit of weight between the Shrine Bowl and the Combine this year, dropped 5 pounds. So his playing weight's probably right there about 190. Tested subpar, for the corner position. Ran a 4.56. The vertical stuff or the explosive stuff was not good at all. Your average corner is a 36-inch vertical. He was a 31.5. Your average broad's 10'2". He was 9'8". So well below average. But he's an instinctive football player, and he's got good IQ, and that's what was able to help him when he was at LSU. to make some plays.
Yeah, you look at this year's draft crop too. Outside of Travis Hunter, you're looking at mostly sub 33-inch verts. Not a lot of guys got hops to him in this draft, so kind of puts
Yeah.
him right there in the middle of the pack. A guy who I like, who I think needs some time, but has a lot of good traits. Obviously, speed is one of them with that 4.36. Got him in like this 5th, 6th round. I can see a team pulling the trigger earlier just because of the traits. But it's not the same thing with Jacob Parrish. He's not a true junior. He's a 6-year senior. Like he's been in the league for a while. I think he's going to be 25, by the halfway through the season. Do you know who I'm talking about yet?
I thought I might, but that last hint threw me off. So who you got?
He's 24 and a half now, so he'll be 25 at some point during the season. He ran a 4.36 40, 8 3/8 broad jump, 33 vert though. So his vert was better. His broad jump was awful. Any ideas yet? You played at UTSA?
You're not talking about Zob Frazier, are you?
Frazier.
So that's where I was going, but I was like, wait a second. No, I got
He's going to be 25 in the season. Is that threw you off?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what threw me off. I didn't realize he was that old. Thought, okay. So I actually have him at the combine. He had a 36.5 vert and a 10.6 broad. His shuttle and cones were right about average. But yeah, that 4.36 was incredible.
Right.
He's match cover corner is what he's going to be. I think he's got a little physicality to him as well. He feels a lot like, what was that guy that came out a couple of years at the UTSA that played
Woolen?
corner seat? Woolen. He feels a lot like Woolen on tape, the way he tested, the way he looks. Built very similarly. The 33-inch arms is definitely a help to him. But he's probably in that 4th, 5th round mix. Is probably where he's going to go. I could see someone taking a comp pick in the 3rd with him. But I would expect him to be off the board early in day 3.
All right, last corner I want to talk about here. And while I do that, we'll fire up this mock draft simulator. Is BJ Adams out of UCF.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that Bucs brought in on a 30 visit. I think he was also there for the local workout. What do you like about BJ Adams? Or do you like BJ Adams?
He was kind of one of these guys that he doesn't have a standout trait. And so when you're looking at the broad picture, you put on UCF tape, you're watching the game, he doesn't necessarily pop at you. So you have to kind of, when people start talking, oh, this guy, he's projected in this round, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, let me go back and take a look at it. I don't remember seeing him. So he doesn't have any real defining trait. He's good overall. And that's while it's not a bad thing, it's not necessarily a great thing either. What you typically find is when you have an overall good skill set and you're capable in all these different things, that means when you face someone who's elite at something, that's where you lose. So there's more ways that you lose than you win, essentially, is what it kind of comes down to. So I think that where you got him projected, that's about right. That's probably where he goes. He's going to be a practice squad guy probably to start, and you're going to hope to develop him, and try to bring some of these traits out, give him something defining to his game. And you're probably not going to see him have too much of an impact unless there's a lot of injuries until year 4.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely a developmental guy. Can play on special teams if he makes the roster. That's the kind of route he's going to go. All right, Jimmy, let's pull up this mock draft. We'll fire it up. We'll talk about some safeties here as well. Marquez Single out of Kansas State. We talked about Jacob Parrish. Talk to me about that as we get this fired up and ready to go.
I'm sorry. What? Say that again. I think I cut out for a second.
Safety from Kansas State, Marquez Single.
Yeah, Single. I could tell you all about him. Yeah, Marquis. This guy transferred from North Dakota State. Comes up to Kansas State. Essentially runs one of their safeties out. He transfers, I think, to Oregon. Kobe Savage. because this guy's a dog. Very physical, wants to play the run, has the instincts to play, deep coverage. Good athlete, not great, but yeah, he's got that dog mentality. He's got everything that you want.
All right, this draft is underway here. Just started it. We're at pick 19. Looks like the Browns went Shedeur Sanders, swerved everybody. So Travis Hunter falls to 4. Abdul Carter stays at 3. No movement so far. As far as Bucs prospects, Jihad Campbell's off the board. Jade Barron's off the board. Matthew Golden off the board. Donovan Ezaraku, unfortunately, off the board. John Walker off the board. Ted McMillan. What's left on the board here is Walter Nolan, who I think is one of those top 12 players. Malachi Stark's another guy who I think he is, but the league just hates these rover safety nickel corners, and all they do is just produce Antoine Winfield Jr., Brian Branch, Cooper DeJean, Kyle Hamilton. He's the only one they took in the first round. Everyone else is like, no, we'll get him in the second round. And what do? They just make pick sixes in the playoffs or chase down interceptions or give Tyreek Hill the peace sign as he closes out a Super Bowl and make all pros. But hey, what do I know about this position that NFL analysts don't? So I'm high on Starks, really high on Starks. I felt Starks this week until the Hairston thing started to creep up and who knows, maybe it's a smoke show, but I have a gut feeling they really like him a lot as well. But I know they like Starks and think he can even place them outside. Other than, I think Nolan is interesting because a lot of people maybe thought he was off their board because of immaturity. I asked Jason Light last week about those concerns, and he said, I'll take a guy who's immature. We got Vita Vea, Elijah Cansey, Levante Day. I ain't worried about it. Spout off and be immature. Like, it's not going to happen. So he's back on my board, and someone who he's a guy who he's my surprise pick. He's like the guy who I think is that if he's at 19 and maybe Ezaraku's there and Starks is there, maybe Campbell's there even still, but Walter Nolan's there, I think he could be a sneaky surprise pick that they could take. And Bucs fans would be like, they just took Elijah Cansey. They just took Logan Hall. They just took, it doesn't matter. Like defensive line, again, Jason Light has talked about wanting to have these waves and compared, the Eagles and other teams. I think he's someone they'd really consider. Will Johnson being here is intriguing as well. And if they want to go offense, because I don't think they've ruled that off, I like Colston Loveland a lot, and I really like Emeka Ugbuka a lot. But this is not my show. Trey Amos is there. Siobhan Ravel way back here in the second round. This is your show, and you can rely on the chat at all if you want, and you get to make this pick. So who are you taking here?
Well, I don't know about the fans, man, but Walter Nolan is a really hard one to pass up for all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, you have to go back to the Eagles defeating the Patriots in 2017, and that's to cap off the 2017 season. That was the first year we really saw a consistent defensive line rotation that really was the anchor and put them over the top to win that game. And since then, you can point to just about every team. I think there's maybe one since then that's won the Super Bowl that did not have that. Tampa included. I mean, Tampa had a great defensive rotation when they went in there and beat Mahomes. So I like Nolan. Now, the maturity concerns I think come from the fact that he's a junior. I spoke with some people that I would trust at Ole Miss, and they said he is nothing but football. That's all he really cares about is football. And yes, sometimes he comes across as immature. It's not really. It's just that's his personality. He's got a very young kind of personality. And they said I think he just had a kid at the before this season started. That really kind of helped some of that and anchor him a little bit. So you're going to get a guy that's passionate about football, that's going to love football. That would be very hard for me to pass up on right there.
We do have trade options 28, 29, 33. So you're moving, 8 to 11, 12 picks back, 13 picks back at that point, or you stick and pick. I will say one thing that Jason Light talked about and asked about that immaturity type of deal with these guys. Because one of his biggest things is he's walked off the field during practice, and Jason broke it down, and it's like it's harder to kind of get a beat on some of these guys because these organizations, not these colleges, universities, know that with the transfer portal, with the NIL and all that stuff, that their players, their freshmen, their sophomore, that they could just get recruited and get picked up at any time and move on and screw up your whole projections and plans. And that in order to keep them happy, they have to get these other guys on the field, and it's reducing some of the reps of maybe their star players or their senior players, or even in Nolan's case, some of their junior players. And that I could see, that would piss me off too. This guy hasn't done anything. He's not a liability, but he's not as good as me. And I've got to come out for a few snaps a game because we don't want him transferring or because he's got $2 million in NIL money. Screw that. Screw that.
Yeah.
And like, if that's something happened to me, like I'm in a groove in practice and all of a sudden, all right, Nolan, come out. Schmo, you're in. Like, I'm feeling it. I need this work. I need this rep. We've got a big game or something like that. And you're pulling me. So this true freshman can get some snaps. You might see 2 snaps, 3 snaps during the game. Like, I need to be prepped. That pissed me off. I'd walk off the field too.
But that plays exactly into what I've heard about him, which is that, hey, he doesn't want to miss reps. He wants to get that work in.
Right. So we've talked a lot about this first round. Are you trading back or are you taking Walter Nolan or someone else?
I think I'm going to go ahead and take Walter Nolan right there.
I love that pick. And Bucs fans would be stupid not to love that pick if he's there. Like,
you get the opportunity to really start to rotate these guys.
Oh my goodness.
That to me is just as valuable.
They all play 33%
as getting a franchise. Yeah, it's just as valuable as getting a franchise quarterback, man. It really is getting to that level because everybody that is competitive has a deep defensive line rotation.
I love the way the board fell right here for the Bucs. Benjamin Morrison, I'll bet on that if he's healthy. We'll see. I think tomorrow is his not his pro day, but his workout day. I love Kevin Winston Jr. He'd be sniffing the first round, I feel like, if he didn't get hurt. I mean, he just brings such attitude to that safety. I really like Omar Norman Lott as a penetrating defensive tackle. We just went, so we won't go there. Jaden Higgins, Mike Evans, not replacement, but someone who can man the outside when he goes. Much different player than Evans. Demetrius Knight Jr., he's 25, but he's a very well-rounded starter in this league for the next 10 years. Carson Schwess, you're getting a special teams ace right off the bat as he continues to develop. 1-year production over there at UCLA, but I really like him too, and he's got a hell of a flow. And I think you move back here, and now you're getting to some guys who, if you want an edge, I like Femi. Maybe it's too early for him. Jalen Knoll, if you want an inside wide receiver, I think this is about the time. I love Makuba. Don't think they'll be interested. And a sleeper, I would say in there is if they want like a move tight end, Elijah Ario from Miami would be interesting too. Jalen Royals is another one. I think that'd be an interesting pick, but the choice is yours and yours alone. As I used to say on Legends of the Hidden Temple, where are you going with this pick?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because obviously we just went defensive tackle and you probably don't come back with it again.
No.
Knight is certainly tempting and tested really well too, way better than anybody expected him to.
Another
I do think
guy too, like mature, has a family, football guy.
I think him and Schwessing are very close together in the sense of who's the better player. They're very similar there in the sense of if you look at the overall grade and what they can do, they're different players, but they're combined. You put that grade together, they're very close.
Right.
And Schwessinger would have the absolute advantage being the younger guy. I just think Knight is probably the better pick, better fit for Tampa. So I think I'm going to probably go Knight right here.
I don't disagree with that, but I am going to ask you over a guy like Benjamin Morrison, who could have been a first round talent had he not gotten injured, and a guy like Kevin Winston, who I think could have been a first round talent if he's not interested, Why Knight over
Yeah.
both of those guys? And we'll take Knight here too.
Yeah, because if you're trying to go to a 4-man rush and you want to play out of that more consistently, we just added the defensive tackle. The next thing that I think a lot of fans kind of think is that you go corner, you go safety, you build something on the back end. Yes and no. You still have to have someone who can go toe to toe with the tight end. Knight's going to be that type of player. He's got that athletic ability. He showed better than expected coverage ability when he went down to the Senior Bowl as well, and he's a run plugger. So he's kind of the complete package, and that's why I like him there. I feel okay about some of the corners later on in the class that I can kind of develop up. I thought McCollum played decently well last year as well. You still got Jamel Dean, I do believe. Vildor comes in, so he's not a top tier slot guy, but he's capable. So I don't feel a lot of pressure there. Whereas the linebacker position, I want a guy that's big like Knight, that can do all those things like Knight, and take that tight end away, especially with all these teams going to 12 personnel.
Right. All right. We're back up on the clock here in the third round at 84. We got Jalen Royals, Kyle Williams, top of the board at wide receiver. If the Bucs wanted to draft a guard for the future, they just re-signed Ben Bredesen, but after some of the contracts sold out, his $7 million seems like a steal. Also can play center, can play guard, and if the situation rose up and Routledge beat him, I think he'd be an expensive backup, but a great backup to have. Femi Oladejo is another guy who they've shown some interest in, brought for a visit. He's just another one of these football guys, lives, breathes, eats football. A lot of good developmental traits there. He's shot up the board. Another guy that was like 5th round turned into maybe 2nd round. There was sniff about the Commanders at 29. He's another guy who we caught up to on the boards. Jalen Knoll, fun player out of the slot, can play a little outside too if you need. He's another guy. I think Jared Wilson will be gone by this time, but Ashton Galati, if you another
one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Oh my goodness.
Dorian Strong as a corner, Jacob Parrish at corner, Noah Williams at corner, Jonas Sanker at safety, Billy Bowman at safety, Kobe Bryant, David Walker, who I really like. I think he's more of a 4th round guy. Where are you going here?
I don't think you're going to go wide receiver. And that's just because if you look at the roster right now, how many wide receivers are on there? You're probably that's not going to be a priority position. Running back is also interesting, and it's because Bucky Irving obviously played a whole lot better than I think anybody expected him to this year. You got Sean Tucker in the wings. Rashad White is still there. White's going to probably not be there too much longer, I don't think.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not an immediate need either. We've addressed the defensive tackle. We've addressed the linebacker position. Edge even has a lot of talent. You obviously bringing in Hassan Reddick this year. Diaby's there. Chris Broswell's on the roster. Maybe you could use somebody there. I guess Watts and Nelson definitely help round out the group. Maybe somebody is there. I think we talked about the slot corner. There's not a lot of need necessarily. You're not as worried about it, but maybe this is where you go ahead and say Jacob Parrish would be a really good fit to help us with the run defense and play that stuff underneath. I think I might go Parrish right here.
And then that allows Tyke Smith to be full-time safety for you. The move that they've been talking about as well is moving him to safety. So I think if you do that, then, it pretty much signifies a permanent move to safety for him. You've got your slot corner. You got your outside corners. You look to draft that cornerback next year in the draft to take over for Jamel Dean. You probably extend Zion McCollum this year. And now you have, your young secondary going forward, kind of like what they did with the offensive line, right? They supplemented it with Ben Bredesen. I'm sure they'll draft the guard here soon. As soon as this year, potentially. Gray Zabel is a name I've heard a lot about in the 1st round with them. If he is like the top of their board, best player available. But I mean, it's a situation where, okay, not that you brought someone in, you had Jamel Dean, now you draft a young guy, they take over. You do the trade, Jamel Dean, let him go. Whatever, how that ever happens. All right, up in the 4th round, we've addressed 3 of their biggest needs. I'd say edge rusher, which is not the biggest need. But it'd be nice to get someone in the system to learn behind Hassan Reddick. They really think that Chris Braswell can take that jump, so maybe he takes. But he's kind of similar style to Yaya Diaby, body type and everything. Like the way he wins is more with power than speed and finesse. Maybe they look for another guy in this draft, or maybe they wait till next draft. Outside cornerback is a position they could go here too. Obviously, I snuck down and saw Noah Williams on the board still. So if they wanted to go outside, they could go there and double up at corner. They're not afraid to. They've done it in the past at multiple positions. So we'll scroll down the board here. Kyle Williams is a guy whose people have got like round 1 all the way to round 4 grades on. It's hard to nail down him. I like Stutzman, but they already went linebacker. Torrey Horton's one of my favorite wide receivers in this class. He's not splashy. But he's going to be. I'm trying to think of a comp for him. He's going to be one of these guys that plays for 10 years and it's just going to be a possession. Maybe Josh Reynolds is who they have here. Maybe a Jarvis Landry type, but not a slot, but just someone who is just consistently coming down with the ball and moving the change and is just steady Eddie. We like him a lot.
Yeah.
Noah Williams, we talked about him earlier. Billy Bowman, I like him at safety as well. He's a little undersized, but man, he gets his hands on a lot of balls in a strictly football meaning way. Miles Frazier is interesting here if they wanted to go guard. Scroll down. Jalen Reed's here. Justin Wally, they already went inside corner. Scroll down a little bit. Any position groups you want me to look at, I can do that. Logan Brown is someone I've got them connected to is a possible. Same thing with Emory Jones. Emory more of an inside guy who can play outside. Logan Brown more of a swing tackle. What do you like?
I kind of like, if you go down just a tad, I like Tyler Batty out of BYU.
Okay.
This is another one of these football guys. He's on my all underrated team a couple of years ago. Just makes plays, and he's smart, savvy. He's also he is older. I think Savion Jones is as well. Batty has him beat, I think, by a year, but he's played a lot of football. He's one of these low ceiling, high floor guys that you could definitely plug into the rotation. You might be able to get some production out of him year 1. And I think that he's one of these guys that he's been so consistently under the radar, but he does all the little things right. Another one of these rounded about guys that doesn't have necessarily a defining trait, but just does everything pretty darn well. I like Tyler Batty here. I know that we haven't touched the offense yet, but add him to the outside linebacker rotation. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can play from upright as well. And he's been pretty darn consistent his entire career.
All right. Tyler Batty, it is. Sack production is something that I think leaves a little bit to be wanted for, as you can see there. Kyle Williams will not be on the board in the 5th round. So neither will Ty Robinson likely. Ty Robinson, outside shot. Kyle Williams, definitely not.
Yeah.
So we'll pretend he's not here. We'll scroll down again. Offensive side of the ball. Isaac Tesla. They've had some communication with him. Miles Frazier, Jalen Reed still here. They've someone that I was going to actually ask you about because he's my best fit for the Bucs, I think, in the 5th round here. So kind of where he would go. So while we continue to look, talk to me a little bit about Jalen Reed because I think it's someone the Bucs could be interested in as we go down the board here.
Yeah, I definitely think the Bucs are interested in him.
Ty Felton is great value right here.
Great value there. He's got a 3rd, 4th round grade from me.
Got a Mumfield as well. Dante Thornton, Thornton Jr. if they want a deep threat. Jalen Lane if they want a everything gadget type of player. Tiny, but he's got wheels and he can do everything kind of well. What do you think?
I saw him at MTSU when he was there before he went to Virginia Tech. So with Reed, he's got really good speed for the safety position. Ran a sub 4.5 40. Strong wrap up tackler. He does struggle sometimes, because sometimes he'll try to use his hit stick as opposed to trying to wrap up, and that's where he'll mess up. But he's a strong. He does have a strong wrap up technique that he uses well. Good angles, capable, in man coverage. He's got enough reactive athletic ability there. He's very instinctive on the back end. So The one thing that he kind of struggles, I think, with consistently is not necessary. I'm trying to find the right way to phrase it. It's probably play recognition. Sometimes kind of being moved out of a spot, not really understanding the concept as well as he could. But yeah, I think that he's a good safety that you probably get some production out of at the end of year 2 and into year 3. Um, it's tough because we're sitting here. This is like a pure defensive draft up to this point. Here we are talking about another safety, but that's really good value, and I think that's probably where you need what you probably need the most. You could make a case for Frazier out of LSU just for some guard depth, but again, I don't think that that's necessarily a way that you need to go. I think Reed makes a lot of sense here. I'll go ahead and agree with you and take him.
Perfect. I would have went maybe Ty Felton here as well. I think it's just good value for him. I think adding to that wide receiver room. Bucs are without a 6th-round pick, so we're coming up to their final pick in the draft here. Couple guys who won't be here. Samil Mondin Jr. probably won't be here. Craig Woodson, I'd be shocked if he's here. I like Craig Woodson a lot too. He's a guy that I'm high on. Kanata Mumfield still here. I like him as a slot type of wide receiver. Malachi Moore, there's so many questions about him. Like
that Vanderbilt performance in particular at the end of the game is a very big question mark.
Zach Frazier somehow still here, probably won't be here. Wish we saw him earlier.
Yeah.
Maxwell, another guy who I don't think will be here. Drew Kendall, I don't know if he'll be here. Nico Reed, the Bucs met with him, but we already got more of that inside guy. Who do you see anyone or any position specifically like me to look? Because at this point, it's just like all over the place. LeJontay Wester, something they had in for. They just had a recent Zoom with him. Had him in for the local pro day.
I really like Gadsden right there. Rondé Gadsden out of Syracuse.
Okay.
I would be shocked, honestly, if he's still on the board at this point. Now, I don't know why they have him so low, to be honest with you. He's
Blocking.
He's kind of but he's
not a blocker. He's a wide receiver.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I don't know why he's necessarily listed as a tight end either. I think I've got him in my system as a 1 receiver or a big slot. So as a receiver, as somebody who's going to, more size, I really like him. Who's still left with the running backs? I don't think you'll take a shot with a quarterback, even though Curtis Rourke is tempting.
Corey Kiner is someone who they've communicated with a lot, and same thing with Phil Maffa. Maffa is my best breakdown, guys. If you didn't already notice, reading my stuff. The last couple of years, I've done a breakdown of every single position of Bucs fits. Usually about, depending on the group, quarterback was like 4 players, but like wide receiver was like 26 players, right? And it's not necessarily everyone. It's just guys who had in communication with the Bucs or who I think are Bucs fits, just knowing the system and everything like that. So I used to do all that. Now I've had to trim it down because I guess people don't have attention spans to read 2,000, 3,000 word articles, scouting reports on how they fit the Bucs system and their pros and cons. So I've had to switch it down to, instead of having my best fits for round 1 and 2, round 3 and 4, round 5 to 7, it's just my best fit for each round. So before I did that, running back was still a part of that, just 3-tiered system, and he's my best fit for late in the draft. I also that's about it. I was gonna say I like Kalen Mullins, but he's gone too. Former linebacker with a linebacker body with a linebacker.
Oh yeah. He's something else.
Yeah, he's interesting. And once he's so raw. He's so raw. He could be a monster in the right system with the right development. I really like Kalen Mullins, but he's not here, so it doesn't matter. But those are the 2 running backs that they've had a lot of contact with. Is kind of
You've got. I think Rashad White is the player that if you're taking a running back here, which you're getting
a pass protecting beast in a pass catching back.
Yeah, and that's going to be Joquavius Marks out of
Right.
USC. That guy, he played at Mississippi State for 3 years, was incredibly productive as a receiver. Can play pass coverage pretty well, and then he's built very, very stout for his size. Um,
Stocky.
yeah, he's a good one. He played with a lot more physicality at USC once they kind of let him start running between the tackles a lot more. Really took an uptick with that. Probably the best bet to replace Rashad White. So I actually I like Marks right here. I think Marks would be a beautiful fit for this system.
Wrap our draft up with Marks and let's see what PFF grades us. The last guy I
It's
want
ought
to
to be
talk to you
great.
while they're figuring this out is Malik Verdon from Iowa State. He's another guy the Bucs have met with quite a few times. Just your thoughts on him, late round prospect. He's more of that physical box safety type guy, but what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's solid explosiveness, very instinctive in zone coverage, especially in the red zone, and he attacks the catch point well. Um, Not necessarily. He had that medical issue in 2022. There's definitely some things that people want to need to kind of answer about that. I don't have the medicals, obviously nobody does, but I hadn't heard anything about it. Came in the year projected as a high priority free agent, so he's got that size that you like, the 6'3.5",
Yeah.
218, but probably a little bit of a subpar athlete because of it. And
Right.
he's going to be in that tweener range where at some point he's going to be asked to move into the box and play linebacker if he
Right.
makes it that long. So,
Right.
as a developmental guy, if he's there in the seventh, he'd absolutely be in the cards
235 for the
as an
Bucs.
option.
So you
Yeah,
can't get much more seventh than 235. It's pretty back there. I know there's like
yeah. So, but if you could bring him in as a high priority free agent, you'd absolutely try. Absolutely.
yeah. So I got them as their 7th round fit right now. So again, it's right there. It was a toss up between RJ Mickens himself and then Keaton Crawford. Those are 3 of those later round guys who the Bucs have met with that I
Yep.
think could fit. All right, let's look at this mock. Walter Nolan gave us an A. Demetrius Knight got us a B+. Then we dipped down to the C levels here for Jacob Parrish. Tyler Batty brought us back up with a D+, but Jalen Reed brought us down with a D in the 5th round, which doesn't make much sense. And Jaquavius Marks with a C+. So we finished it off with a passing grade. Let's see what our grade overall was. B+. Can't hate that.
Yeah, we got a couple of awards. Look at that.
Yeah.
Only the bottom 27%. JC, that's all we did. That's all we did. Bottom 27%.
You know, I think there's a lot of reason to get excited about the top half of the draft. Nolan, Knight, and
Yeah.
Jr., I think, are 3 guys who can come in. And again, this is a starter draft where you can get 2 to 3 starters if you draft correctly immediately. And I think you get that out of Nolan, Knight, Jr., and Jacob Parrish. Batty is someone who can develop. Jalen Reed is someone who can develop. Jaquavius Marks is your insurance plan. Keeping a 4th running back on the roster never is a bad thing, especially with the way that Bucky runs. And I think, you've got some developmental guys who can add. Batty can be a rotational piece in that edge room. His coming into the league. Jalen Reed can be a rotational role. When you've got maybe you've got 6 corners on the field for whatever reason, he can be that safety guy, or he can play that big linebacker role like you were talking about. I think this would be a success for the Bucs if they did that. Jimmy, you want to grab that so you can put that up and ask people what they think after the show. But I think that would be that'd be a good draft for the Bucs. Good haul.
Yeah,
Walter Nolan has Pro Bowl, All Pro ability, in my opinion, too.
he reminds me a lot of Damoon Kong Su a few years ago. Like, he's not as big.
Buccaneer.
Right, exactly. He's not as big as Sue. Sue is 6'5", at 300. Nolan's only 6'3". But that same intensity, that same power behind the hands, the way that they kind of play, very similar. And that's why I love Walter Nolan. I think he might be a better defensive tackle prospect than Mason Graham. But
yeah, I'm there with you. For me, he's my surprise wild card. If he's there, I would not be surprised if the Bucs turned it in. He's not getting enough love.
Have to.
Guess what? They didn't do this. They did the same thing with Kalijah Kancey. No 30 visits, no official combine interviews. He's a guy who I think has sneaky potential to go to the Bucs at 19. John,
Yep.
appreciate you, man, so much for popping on here and doing this. It's been a blast to get your insights, especially on these later round prospects. We'll have to get you on after the draft to give like a recap and everything like that. I'll pick your brain on some of these other guys, but definitely some of these undrafted free agents, because I know you're locked in there. So I'm definitely going to have you out on to break some of down these UDFA's potential steals that the Bucs may have gotten there. But go ahead, promote yourself. Where can everyone find your work? Soon enough, right back here.
Right here on the Sick Network. We'll be doing the Sick Podcast Draft Digest, getting into a lot of that stuff. That's going to be fun.
You're going to be live during the draft?
Probably not this year. The thing is, man, so many people go live during the draft, and unless you're just a team-specific coverage, if you're just general coverage, I mean, like, why at that point? Just sit back, sit back, watch them, enjoy it, talk about it afterwards. You know what I mean?
No, I totally get that.
But no, so my mock draft will be out by the end of the week. It'll be on draftvogel.com, and then anything else that I'm keeping up with, the best place to see it is going to be on X at draftvogel.
Yes, awesome. Check him out. I retweeted the news that he's coming back. And his co-host, so go give her a follow as well. And then
Emily's great. Y'all are gonna love Emily. She's great.
Beautiful. Love that. Love having you back, part of the Sick Podcast Network family. Before we head out of there, just want to remind everyone, like, subscribe, turn notifications. Appreciate everyone for coming. Appreciate all the comments. We'll be back tomorrow at noon, lunch break. Set a reminder for that. Or if you just turn on notifications, you don't have to. We'll remind you 30 minutes and when we go live. So do that. Check that out. We'll be tomorrow with Ryan Fowler of the Draft Network, going through some of these other late round prospects, some of these first round guys as well. And we'll get all that taken care of and underway before the draft starts to heat up. We'll get Josh Capo in here on Wednesday, breaking down more of a Bucs specific draft with some later round prospects, some of what we're hearing, first round guys, all that and more this week. I'm so super excited. Draft is here. It's been a long time. Go check out all my work over at Bucs Game Day. Again, appreciate everyone for tuning in to another edition of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. Everyone for listening after in podcast form, whatever audio device you listen to. Appreciate y'all. Come check us out live again, noon tomorrow, 7 p.m. on Wednesday, and then it's draft baby on Thursday. So heating up. We're almost there. See how this Bucs team improves their roster. Super excited for it. Appreciate everyone again. Tuning in to another episode here at Pirate Parlay. We're out here. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.